Perfect. All right, guys. Full disclosure, you can stop me anytime. You're not going to mess me up. So if I'm going through something and you have a question, go ahead and ask away, raise your hand. So it's not going to be a big deal. Second thing is my background. I am technically now just a backyard beekeeper. That's literally all I do, which is kind of nice because like we were talking about, being a beekeeper is incredibly hot, sticky, and it's just really hard work. And so I went to college, I always joke, so that I didn't have to work that hard. And so my dad is a fourth generation beekeeper. I got to get it right. My great-grandfather had my grandpa move to Nebraska and take over that operation. And then my dad and my uncle took it over from them, and they just sold the business, but my dad still manages the entire Nebraska branch. And so they usually push about 2,000 hives, and it sounds like they're going to move to about 3,000 hives this year. So we're located in Nebraska and South Dakota. And so I grew up, when you're about this tall and you can walk, you are old enough to do something with the bees. And so that is kind of my background. So now I've transitioned this. I have an acreage just in Stanton County here. It's a lot of fun. We have fruit trees and garden and all of that. And we do everything old school when it comes to honey operation. So see if this will work. So tools that are needed. You're going to see a lot of pictures. A lot of these will be me, Dad, and things like that, and are real bees. As you can see, this is usually my attire. I don't wear a whole lot because you don't have to. You might get stung, but it's no big deal, and it doesn't hurt. So coveralls. When you become the backyard beekeeper, your dad gives you just the leftover crap. That's what all this is. So yes, you wear those. The reason they're white, think of it like a bull. Dark colors, aggressive colors like red and black make animals aggressive. That's why the color is white. So it kind of helps. But if you have black hair, it's really not a good thing. And that's why I wear what's called a bee veil. Got the hat, got the screen and all of that, because if I don't, I get lit up a lot in the hair and the head, and that does actually sting just a little bit. The hat goes inside of that. The gloves. Mine have holes all over them, which is no big deal, but these go all the way up your arm. They've got elastic on the top, and that's designed so that the bees can't crawl in and sting you that way too. Hive tool. So this is a beekeeper's greatest asset. It is a little bit of everything. It's a hammer, it's a scraper, it's designed to get frames out, it's got a hole right there for nails to pop out. It is used all the time. And there's a part in your coveralls right here where it fits perfect. And usually, and mine doesn't have hardly any left, we spray paint these so you can see them. Because most bee yards and things like that, you're in grass and things like that, and so you'd never want to lose that. And then the last, and I didn't even empty this on purpose, so I can show you guys. You can see the leaves and all of that fun stuff. This is a smoker. One, you need to be very careful with it because it kicks out flames. So on really, really dry years, you have to be very, very careful because the last thing you want to do is start a fire. Pine needles are great, and you just get that base, and then the air flows out, and then it'll smoke. On a normal day, we'll light this in the morning, and it will literally go all day long, and we'll never light it again. And you just keep adding to it, and there's enough sparks in there that it'll constantly be smoking if you have a pretty good one and it's not clogged. This literally will save your life, but really, if you're going to do any sort of beekeeping, this is it. This is really all you need to kind of get started from kind of that suit and things like that. Equipment. So when it comes to bees, this is what's called a super. It is smaller. It's a sideways video, but this is the bottoms, and you'll see more of those. Those are called decks. That is the base. So that is where the queen lives. That's where she lays all of her eggs, and she never leaves those bottom two supers, and so it's quite handy. Top. That's literally the part that sits on top that is going to keep everything protected from the elements. We talked about the two bottom decks. Supers, these are what they fill for honey. And so on a good year, you might have 5, 6 of them. On a bad year, you probably only have 1. And then frame feeder goes in the very bottom. So it looks like one of these. So this is a frame, but a frame feeder is what you have in the base, and that's what's in there right now, and you add feed to that for the bees. So we're going to go through each season. That way you can kind of get an idea of what you have to do so that you can hopefully be able to do this. So if you have nothing right now, you can even go to Baumgart's. They have equipment. Sioux Bee out of Sioux City, Iowa is probably even a better place to get equipment. And you get your 2 decks, but you have to locate bees to actually get started. The best thing to do is to get what's called a package. So it's literally a package of bees that gets shipped in the mail. You can see the barcode on it. Comes in your house like that. I grew up back in the day, and we would have these inside the house because you get them and it's cold. So you'd go to sleep just hearing bees all night. And it's kind of an eerie feeling when you're a little kid. But these are getting harder and harder to locate because bees are just getting killed off 24/7 across the United States. So if you're going to order packages, you usually need to do it in the fall for that next season. So right now, trying to locate a package, I'm sure you can. You might have to pay a hefty price for it, but it is expensive, and it's tough to locate those. And it's harder to order those in lower amounts because your beekeepers across the United States are going to say, I need 500. And you're going to call and say, I need 5. They're probably not going to fill your order, and they're going to go over here. So you need to kind of have a connection with somebody that actually raises bees and will sell them to you. Now, with packages, there are different types of bees. Some are more aggressive, some are a little bit more laid back, and it's whatever's going to fit your style. More aggressive might produce more honey because they're a little bit more active, but you're going to get stung a lot more. You go the other way, and you get super nice chill bees, and they're not going to work very hard, and you're not going to make as much honey. So we always try to find kind of that middle of the road. A couple years back, and I always tell this story, we had bees out in Stewart, Nebraska, and there was one bee yard, and they were Italian bees. They were mean. I mean, they were so mean. They would light you up just for looking at them. And so eventually we kind of got rid of them and transitioned into different ones. So there are a lot of different kinds out there. So ask, how aggressive are yours and what kind are they? Do you have a question, Marm? No. So what you're going to do is you're going to add that package literally to the bottom 2 decks, and you're going to have a frame feeder in there, and you're going to keep feeding them until the blooms come out. This year it's looking pretty ugly. It's going to be an expensive year because it's probably going to take a while for those blooms, where years past, come April, you can be already getting your bees out, and they can be actually trying to make some honey. And also, and we'll get the very last slide will have all the things we treat bees for, the medicine and why you're treating them. But in the spring, right now, when you have the 2 decks and they're not making honey, you want to treat them. You want to make sure your bees are always healthy. I mean, it's a living organism, and they have their own ecosystem, and so there's a lot of diseases out there. And so spring and fall/winter are when you treat your bees. So summer season, you can see here, this is the 2 decks. This is 2 of these, the supers, where they're making honey, and same thing here. So what this is in the summer, which I know it's beautiful green and luscious, that is literally my backyard. And so I check them every probably 2 weeks, depending on what's going on. Because with bees, they're like people. If you put too much work in front of them, so if I would put 10 supers on there, on that hive, they're probably going to say, no way, that's too much work, we quit. We're not going to do that. But if you're constantly adding just enough to keep them busy, they'll never stop. So you got to check them periodically, because if they get in what's called a honey flow, where they are really pouring in the honey, you want to make sure that they don't make too much honey for what you have, or they'll swarm. So we've all seen the cartoons and things like that where you see this swarm of bees, going down the highway. That is real. We have chased swarms, and you catch them. What it is they get too honey bound. And so the queen gets stir crazy, and she says, I'm going to leave. So the queen and all the old bees fly away, and she produces cells for the new queens, and whoever hatches first will go kill the other ones, or if 2 do, they will fight, because there's only 1 queen per hive. That's it. So swarms are something that are good and bad, because you're actually going to get a new hive if you ever have one, and to catch one, literally all you do, usually they're in a tree or something like that, you put 2 decks below, shake the tree, and if the queen falls in, you have the entire hive. That's all it is. It's that simple. So that's why you gotta periodically make sure that you're keeping your bees busy, but not too busy. Now, another thing too, a hive can die like that at any time of the year. So you also want to make sure your hive is healthy, but in the same, we don't treat or do a lot of medicine right now obviously for health reasons, because they're making honey, and we don't want that to mix with our honey. So the only time we're ever going to treat is in emergency situations where maybe they have mites or things like that, and so then you just don't have a choice. But we always try to stay away from it because just like anything, it's a food product, and everything gets tested, and so we got to make sure ours is approved. So fall season is where all the really, really, really tough work starts to happen. So time to harvest. You'll use an acid board, and I'll show you one of those in the next pictures. You'll use a bee blower or a leaf blower. Either one will work. You're going to take down all these supers off down to the 2 decks, and then you're going to treat with medicine. And so the next photos here will kind of show you that. So this is, I think that was 2015, if I remember right. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was a heck of a year. On top, if you can see on this picture right there, that is what we call an acid board. It's literally an acid-based product that smells horrible. It reeks. And what it does is it causes the bees to go down. So on a nice hot day where there's no wind, you're able to probably get the bees all the way down here, and you don't have to blow them out. If you don't get that, this is what we call a bee blower, this machine right here. And you can see, literally, it just kicks out air, and you're going to blow out each bee. And if you don't, you're going to take them all with you, and then you're going to find out why you don't want to do that. Because if this is full of bees, and I'm going to process it, they're not going to be real happy. So you want to make sure that you can get rid of as many as you can. Full of honey, and then you can see there's thousands and thousands and thousands of bees this time of year when you're harvesting, because they're still trying to make honey and they haven't started to kill off some of them. And so that hive will be absolutely covered. Now, you can also see sometimes you get a few on you too. So when you're blowing the bees out, they literally just go everywhere. And so sometimes they get blown on you because you're in a hurry, and just kind of the way it is. So you can see this is all honeybees. And this is when it's completely done. There's your top, and those are the 2 decks. All of this down here, those are all honeybees that have been blown out. So in this case, those acid boards worked really, really good, and we were able to not have to worry about taking too many back with us. So right around the corner from where those bees are is my detached garage, and that's where my wife and we do our extracting. So I joke, I can take all of our stuff to Dad's operation, and it'd take maybe 10 minutes, and it took us, Jess says it was 6 hours, I say it was 4 hours this year. So we had 2 hives, and we got roughly 33 jars of honey off of 2 hives. And we did that pretty much all in August, because June and July, all the blooms kind of dried up, and I didn't have much honey, and then the rain turned on, and the blooms came back, and so we made quite a bit of honey. But you can see those are all full of honey, and so what it is these are called frames, and all those holes get filled, well, hopefully get filled with honey, and then they're capped. And they're capped so that the honey doesn't fall out. This right here plugs in and gets incredibly hot, and that's what I use to cut. So I cut those caps off, and then from there we start filtering different ways. And I've only got, so this is what's called an extractor. It's 2 frames. That's it. So 2 of them fit in there, and then it's old school. You just start spinning. Spinning, spinning, and the honey, and as long as it's warm out, that honey will fly out and goes into, I think we have a picture. Yep, this is my homemade filtration system. There's no patent on it, so if you want to use it, you sure can. I'm going to definitely change it again this year. But it drains into there. We keep all the wax because my wife and then my mother-in-law use it for a lot of different things. And then obviously I'm all about the honey, but this is a sample picture of all the jars we got off of the 2 hives this year. So it's 100% pure because you can see we just filter it into these jugs, and then I pour it into the jars, and then we store it in our basement. And so it's a lot of phone calls of people wanting it for health reasons. So wintertime, and we'll go back just for a second here. So talk just a shade on health reasons. So like in my family, we don't have allergies. I can't think of one person in my entire family that has any allergy to anything. And we attribute it to honey. So theoretically, bees go out, they're getting pollen and things like that from things that actually make you have allergies. Well, we're ingesting it, and our bodies get used to those things, and so we don't get, allergies. That's one of the reasons why people really like honey, but you want it from your area. So if you're getting honey from Texas, California, and things like that, you don't ever go there, so those blooms and those things that you're bringing in isn't going to do you any good. That's why we always say it has to be 100% local for that purpose. Another thing, honey will never go bad as long as, you don't get it from the store. Our honey never goes bad. It'll be around forever. All you have to do is heat it up. But the thing is, you don't want to microwave it or you're killing all of the good stuff. So what we do is we, usually in jugs like this, we'll put it in boiling water. Make sure you don't put the jug on the bottom of the pan or it'll melt and you lost everything. So we put jar lids on the very bottom so that it can sit on those, and we'll just reliquefy our honey. So I have 2 jugs from Dad's last season that was his last season that he owned the bees, and I'll never use that honey ever. It's just kind of a memory that I wanted to keep his last season. And if someday, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, I want it, it'll still be good. But easiest thing in the summer, just put your jar outside, and then it'll be liquefied by the end of the day. So wintertime is the trickiest part because it's so hard to keep bees alive, and this type of winter like we've had has just been brutal. With the cold and different things like that, it takes a lot of food to keep bees alive. And honeybee food is basically a sugary type liquid. We make a lot of it, and some of it we'll purchase from like Subi honey, but it goes into that frame feeder, and when they can't get outside, they can eat a lot. They can, we'll have huge barrels full of it, and they can burn through that in a couple weeks, especially when it gets spring and they can actually get out. Because right now, you took all their food, so they don't have anything to survive on, so in return, you have to feed them to keep them alive. And also, one of the trickiest things is obviously keeping them warm. So they'll heat themselves, but you have to, we put bee boxes around them, and then you want to make sure that they don't get in a place where snow can completely cover them, or they can suffocate too. And so it's an ongoing process in the wintertime, making sure they are alive. And also in the wintertime, when you're checking them, you don't want to have that lid off of there too long, because all the heat's just gone instantly. So you got to kind of really protect them. So I talked about the medicine. So we have a lot of diseases and parasites and so many things that can attack the honeybees. So in the spring, this is the type of product we use, and then that's what it treats. So main thing is mites are definitely a tough one. And some of them you can see. They're a little tiny red one. You can see those. This one you cannot. It's more of an internal one. And so, yeah, that is number one. Second thing is, we're in an agricultural state, and a lot of spraying and things like that. Well, they're spraying for things that kill bees. And so you got to be really careful of drift and where you actually put your bees for that aspect too. And then in the fall, winter, we'll treat for 4 different things and make sure that we can keep them healthy and stuff like that, because it is an ongoing challenge to try and keep bees healthy. I've got a friend who started from scratch of not having a clue of anything with bees, and that was probably 5 years ago. And this last year he had 18 hives, and I talked to him the other day, and he's down to 5. So, and his hives were incredibly healthy in the fall when he winterized them, and he's already down to 5. And so it's tough. Now, he'll do some splits, and he ordered packages because he had a pretty good idea that they weren't going to make it. And so it's a challenge. And I think, yeah, that is kind of it. So this is my dad. He, like I said, he's a 4th generation beekeeper. He's been doing it a lot of years, and he sold his business, but he negotiated in that he would still get to manage it. So he literally loves working bees. It's crazy. That is his passion. He's dang good at it, and I tell him he's crazy every day because it's incredibly hard work. But Dad's 63 or something like that, and is probably in better shape than me. So it keeps him young too. Questions? Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they'll use it for a lot of So they're trying to make products out of it. You can have chapstick. So you know my wife.
Yeah.
She married into a family that's very outdoorsy and gardening and all that stuff, and she has just ran with it. And so she wants to use literally everything. So I know she's going to use it for that. There's some musical instruments that they have to wax, like strings or something like that. And so my mother-in-law and father-in-law are both band teachers, and so they want it for that. And we had somebody else ask for, and I can't even remember, Michelle, there was something else that somebody wanted it for too. So, I mean, there's, yeah, soaps, yep. Soaps is another one too, because it's able to use it for that. So, yep. Any other yep, go ahead. Yep. So that is everything. You can have 1,000,000 bees in one hive, and if you don't have a queen, they'll be dead in a couple days. So each hive has to have a queen. So that's what that package is you're basically buying a queen. The bees that come with it are just designed to protect the queen, keep her alive, feed her, and basically take care of her. But all you're buying, theoretically, is a queen. You can get smaller ones. So you'll get little tiny containers, and it's a screen deal. And you'll have about 4 bees in there and a queen. And if you're going to buy those, you have to have more bees. So when we have that, we'll have a hive where you'll know the queen's no longer there, but it'll have bees in it. We'll have those little cages, and you'll put it in there, and then they'll stand a chance because they'll take her over as their queen. But yeah, each package has 1 queen. Yeah. What's that? So, funny enough, yes. Yeah, a little paint dot on the back of them. We used to do that. And anymore, no. It's probably been 15 years ago we were doing that. So you could find her a little bit quicker. But literally, you give him a hive of bees, and he can probably find a queen faster than I could with a dot on it. Yeah, and he doesn't need one. So she's longer, and she's going to be in those bottom 2. And yep, you'll find her pretty quick. And she'll always be working, moving as fast as she can. So in the summer, she's laying eggs literally constantly. This time of year, she's not laying as many, obviously, because they're trying to, kind of in survival mode, but she's still laying eggs. Yep. Yeah, Marv? Great question. So depends on the day. So on a windy day, they're not going very far at all. You get a perfect day, no wind, elements, it's kind of like an airplane. Elements are perfect for flying. They'll get out there, half mile. Some people say they can get further. We usually don't think that just because, it's just tough. But yeah, they can get out there. And they know right where to go. So when they get on what's called a honey flow, so let's say they find an alfalfa field or clover or anything like that, and you're in their way. So if I'm standing here and that's the direct line to get there, they'll literally hit you in the head. I mean, they are so precise on where they're going. And if you're in their way, they're going to try and go through you. Yep.
Are there any local beekeepers that sell nukes or?
Good question. I don't know of any that'll actually sell you nukes, but a lot of beekeepers, because everybody's kind of passionate about it, if you're doing like what I do where you only want 1 or 2 hives, a lot of times they'll help you. They'll say, like, hey, come on over, we'll split a hive and try and get you started. Because it's kind of a friendship type thing or respect for everybody that you want people to succeed. So I know my friend who, what's that? Oh, there you go. He does. Yep. He's got some nukes for sale. Yep. Yep. So right there. Yep. Yep. Nukes are basically, it's going to be the very base. So that package you saw, it's going to be kind of like that. It's going to be a young hive that is getting ready to start. So it's perfect to start out because it's got more bees.
With it.
Yep.
It's already got some honey, some brood, eggs and stuff.
Yep.
Just a main hive that she's
Yep. She's like any creature. Some can last a really long time. Others, 2 weeks, they can be dead. It's just, and a hive itself will, reproduce queens, regularly on its own, because it's a queen and she's literally laying eggs absolutely constantly. So sometimes you won't even know, obviously, that queen died and you have a new one. but you can keep hives, alive for years. One hive will be able to just keep going and going and going. They're designed to reproduce themselves to try and keep that hive going. So if she's going to die, or at least swarm or anything like that, she'll produce cells that are queen cells that are a little bit longer, and so those are baby queens. Yep. Yep. Any other questions? Is anybody in here already just a backyard beekeeper? I say just because I'm sure there's people that are actually. Yeah.
Well, I used to be.
Yeah.
About 20 years ago, I got rid of my bees.
Yep.
And last year, there was a beekeeper out of Stewart, Nebraska, he had died. The guy that had this building wanted to get rid of all these.
Carl?
So I went out, I loaded up about 150 of them and brought home. So
Yep.
I got a neighbor that wants to get started, and I thought I'd start a bee too.
Was that on the north end and the west end of Stewart?
Yes.
Yeah, we bought his locations.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm. Yep, because we had helped him throughout the years and at different times to kind of keep it going. And then when he passed away, we had bought some of his locations. That's how we got to the Stewart area.
I see.
Yeah, and you're right, that was quite a few years ago, so yeah. Yep. Well, any final questions?
So what kind of bees are, you said,
There's-
Italians were aggressive, so what kind
And
of bees
even the Italians have they've backed off on that aggressiveness. Each producer of bees kind of has their own style that they're going to produce. So you can just ask them. Yep. Yep. Most of them. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I saw Russian bees advertised when I was looking.
There are. Yeah.
Are those more aggressive? Or?
No, they're not bad. We have quite a few Russian bees. Let's see. We got into those probably about 8 years ago, I think, is when Dad switched those. Because I was asking him the other day which ones he likes, and he liked those too when they would get them. But it's getting to the point because you have so much loss each year that if you're a big operator, you kind of got to go where you can fill your order. And so it's getting harder to choose what you want as much as we've went with this guy every year and we know he's going to fill our order. So there's a big operator, his name's Ken Smith, out of California and out of Wyoming, and now he's moved into Nebraska. And he's a pretty big operator of selling bees and stuff like that. So and he's a really nice guy too. So, yep.
I do have some used equipment, new frames, boxes are used, so you can kind of get in for about half as much
Yep.
money as trying to get home and stuff. Anybody interested?
Can they do that in town, do you know? Bees?
I don't know, but I don't know why you couldn't. I mean, if you had one or two hives, I don't know what the city ordinance would be that would be able to stop you, but not sure. Most people,
Usually a city ordinance, like Omaha, you can have two.
yep.
Neely, you can't have any.
Yep.
It's not the city ordinance.
And it's funny, a lot of people will call us constantly wanting bees for pollination purposes. Yep. So we'll get a lot of phone calls, for alfalfa, if they're going to go for seed, different things like that, they're going to want bees. So, because then obviously their alfalfa field will be better because you're having that cross-pollination. And one of the big businesses in beekeeping right now is California. So almonds require a pollination, so they'll pay big bucks for you to just take your bees and sit them there so that they can pollinate their almonds and their orchards down there. And so that's turned into probably what keeps most beekeepers alive in the business is being able to take them to California. Yep. And wherever they get their honey, if it's clover, white, yellow, if it's alfalfa, if it's sunflowers, if it's almonds, if it's citrus, it does taste different. And it has a different color. Lighter the color, better the grade, technically, from a selling purpose. But yes, it all tastes different. So, yeah. Any other, yeah? Yeah, that's a good one. So that's what makes most people mad is when you have bees kind of close and they need water, they will find water. So dog bowls, stock tanks for cattle, a lot of times guys will get mad, if you have that going on, but they will find water. Water is a big deal to bees because certain bees just go out, grab the water and bring it back, obviously to keep the hive. So wherever you have them, you want to have kind of some water source for the most part, pretty close, but morning dew and different things like that obviously help too. But yes, that is probably the number one complaint you're going to have is hey, your bees are over in my kid's swimming pool over here getting water. You need to come get them. I swear to God, people will call me and say that, and it's like, well, okay, sorry, you know.
How do
Yep.
you just come get them?
You don't. You just laugh because you're like, okay, yeah, there is no coming and getting them. They will get that water. But the argument I always have is how many times have you been stung? And they're always like, well, I've never been stung. Exactly. So, yeah. Yeah. And, oh,
Water for like one hive, how much water a day?
time of year. So in the summer, they're going to require a lot of water because there's a lot of work going on. You saw all those bees, and they're constantly working. It's going to require a lot of water. Now, this time of year and even into spring, it's not too bad. So it's kind of a seasonal deal. Yeah.
The bird bath works nice.
Yep.
Down at Cluster.
Yep. But they'll definitely find it. So, yep.
Another one.
Yep.
You said in the wintertime you should move them out of the elements and out of the wind. Are you talking like in a machine shed or just some trees or?
Both. But the enclosures are becoming real popular, especially out in northwest United States. They're moving their bees inside of buildings, and they're seeing their death rate actually get a lot better, so that they're not losing as many. In Nebraska, that's a little tricky, because it's not like everybody just has that machine shed. Remember, if it's heated, they're going to fly, so you don't necessarily want to make it too nice for them either. But yes, and another thing, when you're moving them in, or like an enclosed area or trees and things like that, with our wind, and I mentioned that, they can get covered up with snow and they can suffocate. So you really got to make sure that, one, they're out of the elements, but if you have a snowstorm, go check on them, because it can take a hive real quick. Yeah.
So you were talking about allergies and your family doesn't have any allergies. So to get that benefit, you have to eat local honey, though, is that right?
That's,
Where you are.
yeah, and yep, theoretically, because you're ingesting the things that are in your area. So all of the pollen that's flying around the area is the pollen you want to get into your body in a safe way, and that's why you want to get that. So like I said, if you're getting Texas honey, well, that's great, but your pollen in this area is not going to be from there. So yep, you want to get, and no knock on store honey in any way. If you like it, good, because you're still purchasing honey. We always just recommend to try and go directly to somebody and getting it as pure and raw as you can. Now, some people have contracts with certain companies and they can't do that. Others don't. But yeah, it's one of those things where we get a lot of phone calls of people wanting that. So, and I do too, because I'll post something on Facebook. Hey, we have honey, and you'd be amazed how many people are like, oh, we'll take a jar. And 100 people later, you're like, well, that was everything we got times 3. So yeah. So we usually try not to sell it. We'll just give it away. Yep, if we have any left over from what we have, because hopefully we have another decent year. I mean, as much rain as we got coming in right now, we should have some start to a good spring anyway. Yep. And there's a lot of medicinal uses when it comes to bees. If like arthritis, stinging yourself has been proven to help with arthritis. It's a venom, and so with a honeybee, when they sting you, they actually do die because they'll leave that sac, and you can actually watch it pulsating on you. So if you ever get stung, don't grab it, squeeze it, and pull it, because you just shot more into you, and that is something that happens all the time. So you want to scrape it out of there, so that way you're not going to make it worse on yourself. And I can guarantee you, if you've not been stung by a bee, in your mind it's way worse than it is. I was actually going to bring one and let it sting me here today, but I didn't have time. So I got off work and I was like, oh, I better just get here, because it's not near as bad. I don't know what's the most I've been stung in a day, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually, when I was a kid, I had a kind of a bad incident. We were trying to work a yard real, you call them bee yards, real fast. And Dad can get away with it because he doesn't have, black hair like me. And he's like, we don't need any equipment. Let's just get in there. We'll get it done, and you get out. And I'm 8 or 9 years old, and it went real bad for me. And I think I probably picked out 50 to 100 stingers out of just my head. Yeah, and that was one bee yard. That was a bad day. Had a headache for a while. Yep, had a headache for a while. So, and I got stung a lot this summer. It's because I use sandals, just shorts, no shirt, and then just usually have like the gloves and the bee veil, and that's all it is. So, yeah. Like I said, if you haven't been stung, it is not that bad. No, and that bee will die. Where a wasp, they'll keep stinging you. So honeybees, they only have one, and then they're in trouble. So, any other questions?
If you're gonna start out,
Mhm.
someone said that you should have 2 hives, is that true, or can you just have 1, or?
You know, when was it? A couple years ago, I had just one. Totally fine. The challenge with one is, obviously, each hive is going to be different. So if you have 2, you're giving yourself a better opportunity for honey. You can literally have 2 hives side by side, and you can have one that'll have 7, 8 of these supers on it full of honey, and very, very right beside it, they may not produce any honey. Might just have a bad year. Bad queen, so many situations. So having that 2 hives, I would recommend, if not even, 3, but 2 is definitely the way to go to definitely get started. So, yep. Any final questions? Marv, do you have bees right now? Are you guys going to think about getting into? Yeah. Call me. I'd help you if I can. So, yep.
Can I just say,
Yeah, absolutely.
I got about 400 hives right now in California. I'm from Ely, and I get calls all the time if anybody needs help, wants something, questions. I help people out all summer long. Sometimes I can answer them over the phone, sometimes I can't. But I usually have queens all year long, so if you have a queen that gets killed or something, well, till usually the 4th of July, about when you're usually old. And I have some cards if somebody wants to grab a card or whatever. And like I said, I do have some used equipment to cut down your costs getting started. We do have a whole package. We sell 2 of the high bodies, 2 supers, top, bottom, and the bees for $260. If you buy them new, it's that just for the boxes. So,
And you think price-wise of what that 36 jars of honey was, when you think about $200, we netted a lot more than $200.
and I do
Yeah.
have honey and wax too.
Yeah.
If anybody needs some raw honey.
So,
But
yeah.
I'm interested in doing it. I live out in Woodland Park,
Mhm.
field out in back, but I'm curious about if somebody could set some back there for me so I could observe it initially
Mhm.
until I was able to decide, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yep.
But I need to make sure the neighbors are going to be okay with it before I start it.
Yeah. And odds are they're not going to be okay with it because most people are scared, truthfully. And I mean, that's really all it is. The odds of them getting stung are so slim to none. It's not even, it's really, they're not. But no matter what, they're not going to be okay with it because most people are just scared. It's going to be hard to find somebody that's going to be willing to put, 1 or 2 hives just because of travel time, to and from and stuff like that. But if you're ever just curious about it, I just live over here in Stanton County. You could always come over and see ours if you ever wanted to kind of see it and stuff like that. So I've actually, my little nieces, I think Alice was probably 4 or 5. I put this on her, and that was it. And I literally walked her probably this far from the hive. And it was in the summer. And, most people would be scared to death of it. She was totally fine. And I showed her, just stay calm. You're going to be okay. And she now, every year, she comes to Uncle Brandon's house. She has to go see the bees, has to go see them because she absolutely loves them. So it's one of those things where it just gets blown out in people's minds. So, yep.
we have one where they have a bee hive by where you are, and their kids' tree house, jungle gym is literally right
Yeah.
here. And they never had a problem.
Yeah.
5, 6 years now they've had bees.
Yeah. We obviously grew up with bees in our yard. My dad lives on a small acreage, and I cannot remember one time in my entire life I got stung at the house. Not one time. Now I can when we go out, but yeah.
Yeah, I for 20 years I had bees on my lower patio
Mhm.
there. So, the neighbors didn't complain because, how are they, they knew they weren't bothering my kids running
Yeah.
around the stalls
Yeah.
all the time. And
Yep.
they never bothered anybody. So
Yep.
then the neighbors, they felt real safe about having bees around because
And if you have 1 or 2 hives,
bothering us,
no matter where you have it in this area, you're going to stand a real good chance, as long as there's blooms anywhere, to be able to make some honey. It's really not that tough because especially, you know, Woodland Park, how many people have gardens and flowers and all of that stuff? You're going to make some honey. It was probably 3 years ago, maybe. It was that year with those 7. We had a clover year. And I don't know if you guys remember, you know, down like that canal area where the river is there, and it was just full of clover. That's a beekeeper's dream. South Dakota had that a couple years, I think it was 2013 or 14 after the drought. Yeah, you know, that was the year. It was, anybody could have made more honey than you could ever imagine because you didn't have to do anything. It was just clover everywhere. And clover is a very good, good quality honey. It's great tasting and stuff like that too. So, yep. Anything else? I encourage you to do it. I can guarantee you'll learn more in about 2-3 years, and you'll be literally experts, and your honey tastes better when it's your own. That is true. That is seriously true. And you'll be very, very proud of it too. So, yep. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.